And that was, remember, that was the time of Sputnik, the time of Gagarin, where Americans were scared out of their wits that the Russians were way ahead in our most competent area: technology, space, computers. And so I went searching for a Russian. One is reminded of George Orwell, who said, "Some ideas are so stupid that only an intellectual would have thought of them." You don't find it funny? That's bad.
Bernard, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt.
What?
I say sorry to interrupt. I want to move the camera around so you can see how the audience is chuckling. Just let me move the camera around.
Hey, good.
There they are. You see, they're quiet chucklers.
Top of the audience there.
You have all
Canadians-
members of our board and new
Yeah.
members and old members. And here we go on this side.
Hi.
And here in the corner we have others. There we go. Wave to the people. There. It's okay. It's actually better without the light.
I know. I see it better with the light.
Oh yeah? Do you?
I see you all in the dark. Now you're lighted up.
Okay, good. We'll leave it lit up.
Yeah.
We'll leave it lit up.
Well, in 1966, I went to the World Congress of Cardiology in India, and there I encountered, by happenstance, I was in an elevator. I saw a sort of nicely attired young man come over to me, and as I was looking down the floor, I saw his scruffy shoes. And I said, he must be a Russian. So I said, are you Soviet? He says, da. And it was Eugene Chazov. He was just not an ordinary Russian. He at the time was the leading young cardiologist, the doctor of nearly everybody in the Politburo, including Brezhnev. So I sat down and started to talk to him. He didn't understand very little English. But I said, sudden cardiac death, is that a problem in the Soviet Union? He says, no, it isn't. And I said, why didn't you invite me to Moscow to talk about it? Here's my chance. I go to Moscow. He said, no problem. 2 years later, I went to Moscow, and I gave a lecture on sudden cardiac death, and it turned out to be an utter fiasco. And there were 700 doctors at the meeting. They were talking to one another. There was no questions when I finished, no applause. And when I asked them, why this response? They says, sudden cardiac death is a capitalist disease. It relates to exploitation of workers, alienation of people, dog-eat-dog society. You're never satisfied. And I looked at them. I couldn't see beyond the third row because so heavy was the pall of smoke. These were heavy-set, big-bellied Russians who probably didn't exercise, who drank a lot of vodka, and also I used to watch them eat the blubber of fat in borscht. You know?
Oh, God.
Right.
And stressed as any persons I've ever seen because they had stress in their apartments where they had to share a bathroom with 5 other families. It was dreadful. Well, 4 years, I said, never again am I going to the Soviet Union. They're not going to help me with sudden death. 4 years later, in 1972, I was invited to come to Moscow to see a patient. When I arrived in Moscow, I went to see the patient. The patient was suffering from renal failure. Why did they bring me? It had nothing to do with the patient. Suddenly it became clear that they recognized that apparently communism did not spare Russians from the capitalist disease of sudden cardiac death, and they wanted me to help them with it. And the RAIN began a 10-year period of collaboration sponsored by the NIH, and I became the head of this program, and Chazov was the head of the overall program of cardiovascular disease, and we became friends. And it is very important that this friendship Without it, IPPNW couldn't have happened.
I remember your case, and it was also very appealing because you took that uremic patient off all of the medication that you got better.
But the interesting story was this. When I said to the doctor, stop all medicines, I see him cross out one, another, then he skips one. Then he crosses out two more, then he skips one. Then he crosses out three, and he skips one. I say, why are you skipping them? He says, you want me to stop the Swedish medicine as well? Because Russian medicine he was buying, but Swedish medicine, I didn't know whether it was Swedish or Russian. You know? But it began a friendship, and without that friendship, it couldn't have happened. What is it? Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but in fact, it's still a problem of trust building, isn't it? Even today.
Yes. Yes. And fundamentally, the moment you begin to build trust, you immediately regard the other as a human being, as a fellow human being, equally afflicted with you, with mortality, illnesses, stress, unhappiness, joy, all the qualities that you and I and every human being possesses. And the rain creates a commonality that you can begin to pursue a shared agenda, because after all, nuclear weapons threaten them as much as us. And and for me, it was one of the most powerful educations I had, because thereafter I traveled to the Soviet Union about 30 times. And 30 times I learned that they were great people and were constantly joking. You wouldn't, of the dour, somber Russians, you wouldn't think they would be joking, but they told endless jokes. You don't want me to begin telling you some jokes.
I heard about the vodka.
The vodka, you know. Yeah, I mean, a Russian says to me, you know, oh no, I won't get that way.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, one Russian talks to another. He says, Alexei, what would save the Soviet Union is have a type of system like they have in Sweden. He says, because in Sweden, look, they have the highest standard of living in the world. People have easygoing, good government. We need a Swedish type of government in Soviet Union. And his friends say, Andrei, it would never work in the Soviet Union. Why? We don't have enough Swedes.
Right.
Okay.
My colleague here, Janet?
Oh, yeah. Okay. We were talking earlier, because we've been meeting all day, and I raised the question that I know that you and Helen Caldicott differed about whether nuclear power should be part of the agenda. And it seems pretty clear that it couldn't be then. But I wondered how you feel about that topic now.
Well, it's an important question. I have an echo here. I hear something. I hear my own voice.
Echoing.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We hear you okay, though.
We
Okay.
can hear an
Good.
echo.
Well, in 1978, Helen Caldicott reactivated PSR. I was president for about till 1970, from about 1962 to 1970, 71. And then I got involved in a lot of medical work, and I said, enough. She revitalized PSR at the time, and at the very time that 3 Mile Island happened. And that gave her immediate visibility in the United States as sort of a prophet.